My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey folks, welcome back. Have you ever thought, you know what? I think I'm paying too much tax. I think Uncle Sam, or up here in Canada, the CRA is just getting too much of my hard-earned money. Well, if you're thinking that, you're not alone, especially Canadians. We think that a lot, and I know our friends south of the border think that a lot as well. And our special guest today, zooming in from Indiana, Jerry Eyer, also thinks that way, but he's doing something about it. So, Jerry, welcome to the call.
Thank you, sir.
So give us a little snapshot, because you're an active real estate investor yourself. What do you do real estate wise?
I do a little bit of everything. I've done some wholesaling. I've done some flipping. Primarily right now, I'm focusing on buy and hold, usually with multi-unit properties. And then I'm also doing some developing as well. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of mix of everything. So if
Small
the opportunity
multifamilies or
presents
larger
itself.
ones, what size?
Right now, I've got mostly small. I'm working on the commercial size right now. I'm actually in contract with the developing of a mixed-use property. So it's a plot of land of about 2.5 acres that I'm working with the local town here, and they're developing a professional park, basically, is what they're calling it. And so I'm right now under contract for the 2.5 acres to develop it and turn it into like a mixed use commercial property. So
Very cool. All right. Now, we were
yeah,
talking a little bit before that we started recording that what really kind of juices you up is leveraging the tax rules and regulations in your favor.
yes,
Kind of,
I'm a
yeah,
huge fan of leveraging anything.
yeah.
And doing it to the benefit of everybody, in my opinion. I'm not about trying to leverage to get the upper hand on somebody else. But when the rules, are there to be used, like they are in the IRS tax code within the United States, obviously, then, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't set yourself up to use those rules. So yeah, a lot of the leveraging that I do involves, knowing how to set up your LLCs or your business entities, so that you can qualify for these tax write-offs, but also structuring them properly and operating them properly in such a way that you can implement these tax write-offs as well. And there's several things that you can do when it comes to tax write-offs. One of the things that the IRS allows is you can acquire an SUV, and write it off within the next month. Like if you buy it at the end of December, and you do it within your LLC, then come January or February, you can write the whole thing off as long as it weighs more than 6,000 pounds. So that's
So,
literally the stipulation in the IRS tax code, is it has to weigh at least 6,000 pounds.
unwrap that for me, Jerry, because I'm just going, what the hell? Why are we being incentivized to buy big gas guzzlers when supposedly, we're supposed to go
That
green?
law came out when there was the big scare of the SUVs being gas guzzlers, and when there was everybody was trying to find cheaper ways to get gas or to use gas and whatever. And so the car manufacturers, from the research that I've done, the car manufacturers, negotiated with the government to incentivize people to buying SUVs, and that was how they incentivized them. Was you could use it as a tax write-off by, as long as it weighed more than 6,000 pounds, you could use it as a tax write-off. So yeah, and there's all kinds of sneaky little rules in there like that. Which is
Who the
fascinating
hell's
to
going to
me.
know about that rule? Like, I mean, that's like, would they want
You
that?
have to find the people that know these rules. And people always talk about, well, who do you find that does this? And they go, they talk about getting accountants or CPAs and this and that and whatever. And I always say that what you want to find is somebody who is a tax strategist. not an accountant, not a CPA. You want to find somebody who actually understands and studies the tax laws year after year because it changes every year.
Yeah.
You got to find somebody that studies these things every year and knows how to use it to your benefit.
Hmm. So what are some
So
other fun ones that you've come across in your journey down this path?
probably one of the biggest ones, the creme de la creme, in my opinion, as far as the tax code goes, is trust.
Okay.
And with that, there's a specific trust that I usually steer people to. And obviously, there's thousands of different kinds of trusts and different ways you can set them up. Um, but the one that I typically steer people towards is one that I have in my market or in my network that I work with the attorney and the attorney, partners and whatnot. But it is a trust that actually can eliminate capital gains tax. It can eliminate passive income tax,
Wow.
any passive income. So I know a lot of people will use what's called the 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's, yeah,
Yeah.
1031. A lot of people use that and they're, absolutely in love with the 1031 because it avoids paying the capital gains tax and it kicks it down the road. Well, this trust does the same thing, but it does it without any of the restrictions or any of the limitations that come with the 1031 exchange. So you can
Plus,
literally
if I'm
just,
understanding you correctly, there's no end of the road with this one.
no, absolutely not. As long as the trust itself is an active trust, then you can continue kicking the can down the road. And of course, the trust is considered an active trust as long as it has a beneficiary.
Yeah.
So as long as and that can go for generations. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So as
Yeah.
long as you can keep coming up with, beneficiaries, then the trust is still active and you can keep passing, or moving the capital gain
So
down the
one
road. And
beneficiary assigns another beneficiary after them for the trust.
yes,
That idea, like keeping it. Okay.
yep.
Cool.
And they just
What
keep
would you
renewing it.
say? Because you're a real estate guy as well, what do you say are some of the biggest mistakes you see other real estate people making when it comes to this kind of stuff? Like what are where
I
they
would
end
say
up paying
probably
way too
over
much tax?
leveraging.
Huh?
I would say over leveraging.
Over leveraging. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. If they're because there's I'm sure you've heard of the Burr method.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in that you can get to where you are over leveraged to where it tightens up your ability to actually move in real estate, if that makes sense. You know what
Well,
I'm saying? Because
maybe
it
explain
limits how
that to
much
me
you
a little
can.
bit.
Well, basically, if you're over leveraged, meaning that you're taking too many loans out against the properties, then that doesn't give you the ability to stay liquid, stay
Oh yeah.
fluid with the market. So because it can put a chokehold on what you can do as an investor or where you can move in the market, if that makes
Right,
sense.
because you've got no equity left basically in that property, so you're
Exactly.
stuck. If the
Exactly.
market goes down, you're underwater.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And there's a fine balance to it, really, because I also believe that there is a strategy for making yourself less attractive to attorneys that are, trying to
Predatory.
just find the next, yeah, predatory attorneys, yeah,
Yeah.
and using leverage and refinancing properties for that reason is a great strategy. But there, like I said, there's a fine line between doing that strategy and over leveraging yourself to the point that you can't make a move in real estate. So that would
Plus,
probably be the biggest thing
wouldn't
that I
that
think.
play in nicely as well with owning properties in LLCs and having your corporate setup done properly so that it's not as transparent. It's not as easy for those lawyers to figure out who actually owns them. Owning
Yes,
properties and trusts and that sort of thing as well.
yes. And the best, probably the best method that I've heard for that or that I've seen for that is using a Wyoming LLC because with Wyoming, you're completely anonymous to
Mhm.
who owns the LLC. And so that's probably the best strategy. And that's again, something that I can, I work with attorneys and accountants that actually know how to set that stuff up. and so yeah, it's I think that strategy combined with the leveraging strategy, and again, leveraging is important to to be able to protect your assets as well as um, be able to move in the market and be able to actually invest when you want to invest. Sometimes you can actually use too much of your money, and that's what ties you up. And that's what I mean by over leveraging as well, because it's not just having too many of your properties leveraged. It's putting too much of your money for work to work at once. If that
Mhm.
makes sense, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah,
So
definitely.
you kind of got to find the balance between all of that. I typically say I would say about 60% of leverage per property is what I would suggest, just because somewhere between 50 and 60%. Just because if you needed something, if something came up, or the market crashed and property values just plummeted, you're not as hard hit. Like in 2008, most property values dropped like 20%.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That was the average, was 20%. Um, and most banks will lend at a 70%. So if you're staying at a 60% and it drops 20%, you're still not hit as hard as anybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's leverage to the max. So like I said, you kind of got to find that balance. I always kind of try to stay close to 60, and not over leverage. But at the same point in time, try to keep a decent amount of liquidity available, in case something does shift in the market. And because you never know when something comes up, or if the market does take a shift and you need to move money fast, or you need to spend money fast to get these amazing assets, because it can happen overnight sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. So Jerry, how did you first kind of get interested in all of this side of things, the tax minimization side of things and corporate structure? Do you come from that background? Do you come from a legal or an accounting background, or is this just something that piqued your interest?
It's 100% a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to do that. I'm a big researcher. I like to study. I don't typically research the way most people research, though, because usually what I'll do is I'll actually research how to mess something up first. You know what I'm saying? I research how people have done it wrong, and then I find the solution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I
And so,
sometimes I'm the guy that's done it wrong, and then I'm looking for a solution. So yeah,
well, yeah, yeah, and so I might have studied you a couple of times. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, so I kind of do research a little different than most people, because they're researching how to find the answers to things, and I think you can actually find answers quicker by studying what has gone wrong.
finding some sort of catastrophic screw up and unraveling that's
Well,
the
yeah,
idea.
because honestly, that provides more answers than just finding one answer. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Because
so
most
what would
people,
be an example of something that piqued your interest? And you saw somebody implode or explode or whatever, and you said you unraveled that.
um, it was honestly, it was my own father and mother passing that sparked a lot of that.
Hmm.
And they basically, my dad worked his entire life, and he died with not a penny to his name.
Yeah,
And that spark for me was, well, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen for me.
yeah,
I'm definitely going to make sure that I leave some sort of legacy. And so I started studying, the different people that have done different things, and to set their lives up, and which led to learning about the Vanderbilt.
hmm.
I don't know if you know the Vanderbilts or not, but they were
Yeah.
actually,
Not personally.
well, yeah, obviously, yeah. But they were actually, at one point in time, they were wealthier than any family in the world.
Wow.
They were the wealthiest family in the world at one point in time. And they lost their inheritance within 3 generations or 4 generations, I think it was. And Anderson Cooper is the only remaining uh, family
Vanderbilt.
member that, yeah, Vanderbilt, that has any kind of wealth to his name. But it's not
Really?
because of the heritage; it's because he made his own name in broadcasting.
I did not know.
Um,
I didn't. So all the Vanderbilts are now broke, is basically what I'm hearing.
yeah,
I
his
didn't know
his
that.
mother, Anderson Cooper's mother, was the one of the last Vanderbilts to receive any kind of inheritance. So yeah, and it was all basically gone within, I think it was either 3 or 4 generations, if I remember correctly. So I studied that and what they did and what they didn't do, and then looked for their counterpart, which was the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds.
Okay.
So that's what led into the trust and the life insurance and all that kind of stuff too, because life insurance, when you team it up with the trust, creates your own family banking system. So where you
So
can
I,
literally
I can
lend
see some
and
people saying, well, that makes sense for the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers and these guys that have made gazillions of dollars and got to figure out where to
right,
park it
right.
for future generations. But what about the rest of us? Does this actually make sense for the little guy?
You could actually start your own family banking system for probably around 100, maybe $150,000,
Wow.
and it would start churning money for you right away.
Yeah, that's
So yeah,
impressive.
it can be something for the small. And I mean, in granted, you're not talking about people that are living on the low end of spectrum of finances, whatever. But that would actually start the wheels turning. It's not going to start producing, millions of dollars for you right away. But when you're talking trust and generational wealth, the general idea is to plan for 3 generations at a time, not for what am I going to get out of it this, in my lifetime kind of
Yeah.
thing. You know what I'm saying? So, but when you set it up and you start those wheels turning, I mean, realistically, you can actually complete a drastic change in somebody's, in your, in direct family's life with just your children if you start young enough. Somebody like for me, I'm probably not going to see a whole lot of benefit from what I'm doing now. Um, but my kids and my grandkids will. They'll be able to do whatever they want with their money.
Well,
And
as
they
long
can
as long
borrow
as they don't
from.
screw it up like the Vanderbilts, because that sounds like well, that's what they did.
Well,
Whatever they
that's
wanted with the
that's the
money.
difference with this trust. That's the difference with this particular trust is it's set up in a way that it has to follow certain guidelines and certain rules,
Hmm.
and it cannot be changed once it's set up. So it is an irrevocable trust, but that's why it can last for generations. So I mean, if
Cool.
you look at the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, they're still living off their trust. So and
Yeah.
and with every passing generation, it only grows that much more. So
Fascinating stuff. Jerry,
yeah,
this has been great. If people want to connect with you and find out more, especially around this kind of stuff, where should they go?
wealthassistance.us.
That says it all right in the title there.
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Jerry, thanks so much for being on the show. This has been fascinating.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you on the next one. Hey there. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.